execution of a convicted serial killer delayed last week as officials, not that they couldn't find the drugs to kill the person. They had that. They had everything set up. They had people there. The governor did not make a call to stay the execution. The reason that they could not execute the serial killer, they couldn't find a vein. Now, Stacey, you're going to have to enlighten me on this. I've never had to find a vein in someone to inject anything, including myself. So I don't know how difficult it is, but you know, I've been in line for the flu shot. I took the first 2 COVID shots. I've had a shot or 50 in my life. This doesn't seem like it would be worthy of shutting down an execution. I would think you could figure this out. How off am I on this? You've got a layperson's understanding, and that's perfectly fine. That's how that works.
I like to put that actually on my, on social media where you put like your like little signature or like about yourself. I just put layperson.
Well, that's okay.
Layperson.
That's okay.
Podcaster, layperson.
Right? But that's what most people are. You know, we're not experts in everything.
Well, we're all we are all lay people in something that we don't know about.
Correct.
Yep.
Correct. And my background, so that I don't sound like I'm talking out of my rear end here, I'm a certified veterinary technician and I'm a former EMT and firefighter. So I have extensive experience with needles, whether it's giving injections or putting in an IV line. It's difficult, but other times it's not. So there are things behind the scenes that really can make a difference. Dehydration. The temperature of the room that you're in can make a difference as to how plumped up the veins are. These are professionals. These are phlebotomists who are coming in, and that's somebody who has extensive vein experience. Accessing veins can be really difficult. So if somebody is stressed, maybe they're sick. Who knows what he had for his last meal?
One would guess one may be a little stressed if you're about to be injected with poison to kill you.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know if they're allowed to have any alcohol or anything beforehand. I don't know if he was sick beforehand.
Because you can have like you get like your last meal. That's a good question. Do death row inmates get alcohol?
Yeah, because if they're dehydrated, getting in, you can see the vein.
Denied. But
you can't access it very well. It bounces around or it's flat and you can't get into it. That's, a lot of times one of the things that I kind of specialized in toward the end of my veterinary career was euthanasia. And when an animal is extremely sick, it's stressful to get into a vein. It's hard to do. It's hard to find.
Yeah.
So, this guy is 73 and sentenced to death. He's stressed. Who knows if he has an underlying illness? I can imagine it would be hard, but as we get further into the story, you'll see that they made 10 attempts.
Fuck.
Now, take a look at your arms. You can go for your legs as well, but I'm sure they were going for either his arms or his hands. Enough is enough. They should have stopped after 3 or 4. At least in veterinary medicine, if you can't get into a vein after 2 tries, you turn it over to somebody else.
I think I've had a flu. For the most part, I've had really good shots and things done. I know you don't inject into a vein necessarily in a flu shot, do you? Or
no, never. No, that goes subcutaneous usually. Yeah, no. But where you do look for a vein is like when you're pulling blood, usually, correct? Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
If so, actually, I'm not sure if flu shots go subcutaneous or if it's intramuscular, but whatever. No, if you are accessing a vein, it is either to pull blood or to put medication directly into the vein. There's you wouldn't do any vaccinations there, anything like that.
Well, the scheduled execution of Thomas Creech, Idaho's longest-serving death row prisoner, I don't know what the deal is with that Idaho, but there's a lot in Idaho. Faced a startling delay on Wednesday morning as prison officials struggled to find a suitable vein to administer the lethal injection. Creech, who's now 73, convicted of 5 murders spanning 3 states, was set for his sentence at 10 a.m. Pacific. But the execution was abruptly called off due to complications of the procedure. Josh Twalt, director of the Idaho Department of Corrections, announced a delay, stating the medical team could not establish an IV line, rendering the execution unable to proceed. Despite attempts.
Well, here's what's interesting is in the emergency field, if you're having trouble accessing a vein, there are other ways to get into the bloodstream. You can go in through bone. Like there's a drill that you can, if you need to get.
That seems a bit much for an execution. Let's drill into your bone.
Well, it's done in trauma.
Okay.
So paramedics and EMTs, it depends on the state you're in, but paramedics certainly have access to the drills to get into your bone to get you medication that's life-saving.
Okay.
You know, if they're planning on killing this man, I don't know how the drugs specifically work that they're using, but there would be a way to get into him. It just sounds like they just kept trying to get into the vein.
I think,
and maybe they don't use a bone drill to do that because it's excessive.
I think it would be a PR nightmare if people were like, and then they had to use a bone drill to get them. Like, there's many ways to kill someone. It doesn't need to be this complicated, quite honestly. Despite attempts by a team of 3 medical personnel to locate a vein in Creech's arms and legs, including 10 separate tries, the procedure proved unsuccessful. Creech's arms and legs were strapped to the table as the attempts were made. In a statement, the department confirmed the state will consider next steps. It's a nice official statement. As Creech's death warrant expired due to the failed execution attempt. So I guess, like, if you're on death row, eat a lot of salt. I would just be like downing salt. Like, you're not going to find a fucking vein if you try. Witnesses reported seeing Creech interacting with family members and even waving at various points during the process. Hi. However, upon the halt of the execution, the warden approached Creech and engaged in a private conversation. Creech's attorney swiftly filed a motion to stay in the U.S. District Court, condemning the execution's attempt's botched nature. They had previously filed multiple appeals on grounds including an unfair clemency hearing and ineffective counsel, all of which were denied by the U.S. Supreme Court just hours before the scheduled execution. The convicted serial killer story is one of infamy, with convictions for murders in Idaho, Oregon, and California, dating back to 1974. This is how our system works. You get the death penalty in 74, you get death in 2024. Creech confessed to additional murders, although his attorneys dispute the murder, claiming it to be grossly exaggerated, despite attempts by supporters to argue for a sentence of reduction to life without parole. Creech's history of violence has left a legacy of fear and mourning in the communities affected by his crimes. As the delay unfolded, protesters gathered outside the Idaho Maximum Security Institution, where Creech is incarcerated, adding to the tension surrounding the case. Creech, who has been joined by his wife for a last meal the night before, faces an uncertain future and legal proceedings continue. Can you imagine, like, you're sitting there, you're about to die, and you got, I guess, somehow it's one of those stories where people who are single, who are decent people, are like, even this asshole has a wife.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I can't find anybody to love.
But somehow this prick has a wife. I guess, do you get like I imagine you get a redo on your last meal because you got to keep eating.
Oh yeah, of course.
In the process of doing this, I looked up some of the meals and such. Lobster may not always be available. I've learned.
Really?
Yeah. Apparently, it's kind of restricted to a lot of like what the prison system can get in. So they do deny. I was looking up the alcohol question of like, can you get alcohol? It's not always denied, but is commonly denied, as are like very exorbitant things like lobster. And, you know, I think I'd be like asking for caviar and lobster and like really expensive wines. And they'd probably get me like fucking Mad Dog and, the crab that's spelled with a C. Like, here you go, sir. Enjoy.
Wow, that's pretty incredible.
which was also a lot like Christmas most of my life growing up. Okay, not the Mad Dog, but Boone's Farm. So pretty close.
Interesting.
Yeah. Interesting as to that's what I had on Christmas, or interesting as to that's what they allow.
I'm going to go with both.
Okay. Well, my dad is allergic to shellfish. So me and my mom would get shrimp and stuff like that, but we did not have money for lobster or anything of that sort. My God. Maybe shrimp once a year. But it was, if we had the seafood stuff, it was that crab. It was that, is it pollock? Whatever it's made out of, the
yeah, pollock. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the fake crab. And a lot of that. I don't know how I got into that, but yeah. Thoughts on what's going on here with him and not my Christmas dinners circa 1994?
Well, I don't want to say that I feel bad for him, because he's a convicted serial killer. But I do think, we've got so many people who are talking about, I don't want to defend him, but I think this is cruel and unusual. But then you go back to, well, look what he did to people. So, it's,
well, how cruel? I mean, how
we
cruel
don't subscribe to an eye for an eye.
Well, it's not like they just kept stabbing him. I mean, they did do 10 attempts, but it's a needle. I don't think it's any worse than, I don't know. I mean, I think some of us, we've gotten shots. We've had blood drawn and they couldn't find a vein. I think I've had like at least 5 attempts one time on trying to find a vein to have blood drawn. I wouldn't consider it cruel and unusual. I would just say either an inexperienced person or it was hard to find the vein that day. I don't know. I mean, compared to what he's allegedly done or has been convicted of doing, this doesn't seem all that bad considering he got to live.
Yeah, I imagine they're going to come down with another date that they're going to try this again. But
go ahead.
Maybe they should put a port in the night before.
That might be a good idea. Are they? Here's a good question though too. Okay, so this did not work. The vein thing. Idaho has just reinstated execution by a firing squad.
Oh God.
Is that going to? And you know what? If I were to die, I think I'd pick that one. If I had a choice, if I were on death row in Idaho, I think I'd go with that because it's pretty much guaranteed you're going to die. The other shit, there's been far too many botched executions via poison where they live and they suffer and it's like, oh, shoot, we shouldn't have done. You get a brain, or although they don't shoot to the head, do they? They shoot at the heart.
Right.
See, I'd want them to shoot at the head.
I think that's too messy and too risky.
Why is that risky? You blow their brains out.
They may still be alive after that.
Use a shotgun.
Oh, Tony.
Maybe change up the protocol to make this actually work. If there's too many things where it's like, well, the bullet did go through, but they're still alive. And they know how to play Mozart because they somehow became very, it activated something in their brain. They can't speak, but they can.
Right.
It's, if you're going to kill somebody, do it for real. Like, if that's the goal, then just do it. Figure out a way to do it. We find so many ways to do it outside of a prison system, and people are very successful at it. Why do we have so much difficulty within the prison system? Pardon the pun, executing the task.
Yeah, it comes down to, we're trying to kill somebody, basically. And yet in our society, we've got so many arguments against death, whether it's abortion or assisted suicide, that kind of thing. And yet we'll take a death row inmate and, we're going to kill him. We're going to do this. There's so many arguments on both sides, and we want to be humane about it. But yet, part of it is look at what he did to get there. Do we really need to be humane for him? Yeah, actually we do, because we are a civilized society. Yeah. So we need to get this right. We need to figure it out if we're going to do it. And as grotesque as a firing squad is, you've got a point.
Well, I mean, and if you're to use a shotgun or something, I mean, to me that it's messy. Yes. It's humane. if you were to shoot that at the head, gone, done, no pain. They're not even going to realize it. There's no chance of like lingering around for a little while. It's done. I mean, it just seems to, honestly, that seems to be one of the more humane routes. It seems the messiest for the living who have to sit around and then clean that shit up. But at the end of the day, humanely, you took that person out very quickly.
Yeah. Nope, I agree.
So I don't know. The electric chair is still around. I was curious about that. It still is around in Alabama, Florida, Kentucky, and Tennessee.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah. I mean, that to me also seems like a very inhumane way of doing it too.
And that to me, that is cruel.
I'd rather,
I think it takes longer. It's painful while it's happening. I don't think that's right. This way, you at least drug them up so much once you get the IV in that they don't feel anything. They basically cross the rainbow bridge, just like our animals.
Sure.
But the electric chair, they're being electrocuted. That's not pleasant.
That seems a bit much.
There's a smell. There's everything.
Yeah. And then sometimes they don't even kill them either. It seems like we have a great way of failing at doing this properly. I don't know. There just seems to be a lot of ways that this could be done. There's never a pretty way of killing someone. But if we're doing it in an organized sense, I would think we could do better than, oops, we can't find the vein.
Sick of the ads?
We are too.
Start listening with no commercials now and get access to all of our episodes in advance of everyone else.
Become a True Crime Today Premium Plus subscriber on Apple Podcasts.
Search True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts or go to our podcast page and sign up now.
True Crime Today Premium Plus.
Sign up now.